Tonight, the dream is over. An army and the national team are heading home after a dramatic defeat to Hungary ends Scotland's Euros campaign.
I speak to the Tartan Army here in Stuttgart on a night of huge disappointment for Scotland at the Euros.
And I'll look at where it all went wrong for Steve Clarke and his players.
Also making the headlines, the Scottish Conservatives launched their general election manifesto with 5 key policy pledges.
And we've the latest as residents are told to stay indoors following a major fire in Renfrewshire.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. The Tartan Army have done Scotland proud, but yet again, Scotland have failed to get through the group stages of an international tournament. Scotland lost to Hungary last night with a disappointing performance in a game we had to win.
We've been here so often. The hope, the expectation, and the Scottish fans earning goodwill wherever they've been. The disappointment is acute this time. Scotland had a real chance to qualify for the knockout stages of an international tournament for the first time in 12 attempts, but they failed to do so. Chris Harvey has been watching the Tartan Army in retreat.
Oh, John, Kellyanne, where do you start? Scotland at major football tournaments is becoming something of a bad cliché. From the irony of don't come home too soon, it's hard to argue this time, in any respect, this was too soon at all. Over 3 matches here in Germany, including that shocker in the arena behind me last night, Scotland have failed to deliver on the hope, the expectation that this was indeed our opportunity to create history for the first time and qualify out of the groups and into the knockout stages. Instead, it was that all too familiar tale of heartbreak and disappointment for the Tartan Army, the Scotland players, just everyone.
We didn't do enough to win the game. We have to suffer, we have to be sad. We do that, and then we'd have to move on.
In Stuttgart today, the Tartan Army were in reflective mood, happy to have been part of it, sad it had come to an end.
This is our first tournament abroad since I was 15, and to be a part of it makes it worthwhile. Gutted we're not going any further, but there's always next time.
Heartbroken, but it is what it is. It is the result, but we've had a fantastic time.
Bit disappointed, obviously. Put a lot of effort in. Guys tried their best, but just felt the line at final hurdle away. So,
while back at home, the emotions were the same.
I thought we could have been braver for the word go. It's pretty disappointing, to be honest.
Just there wasn't that many chances for Scotland to score, do you know what I mean? So I just didn't think they're good enough.
Just like tactically, everything was wrong.
Should have just went for it a bit more than what we did, but as it is, it was a good experience, all I say.
I talked with a lot of inhabitants of Stuttgart, in the Stadtgarten and so on. The pictures were great and all were happy and that very cool supporter. The Scottish fans can come back every time here to Stuttgart.
We'll go back to Raman in Germany later in the programme. The Scottish Conservatives launched their general election manifesto today with 5 key policy pledges, mostly on devolved issues. They say they would recruit 1,000 more GPs, 1,000 more police officers, fill in potholes, improve education and cut income tax and national insurance.
Douglas Ross says he's laser focused on tackling the public's priorities. But Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who was in Scotland for the event, is facing further questions about the gambling scandal. Well, he's been speaking to our political editor, Colin Mackay. Colin, what was he saying?
Well, Douglas Ross is admitting that this election is a tough scrap, a bit like the football was last night. And incidentally, as a linesman, he says it was a stonewall penalty for Scotland. But you know, there was actually more attack today than there was last night. Most of it focused on the SNP. The Prime Minister Rishi Sunak claimed that Scotland had become the high-tax capital of Scotland. Now, the Prime Minister didn't want to talk about certain other things, about the gambling scandal with senior Conservatives accused of betting on the election day, but I asked him about it anyway. Are you angry because they breached your trust as the Prime Minister?
I'm angry at the thought that someone might have acted in that way. It's important to note that we are conducting inquiries, as I say, at the moment in parallel, because I don't have details of the Gambling Commission's inquiries. They're independent.
But it's not really a case of they might have acted in that way. Craig Williams has admitted it.
There are very serious independent investigations being conducted, including by the police, and that's why it's not appropriate for me to provide a running commentary on that.
I'm not asking for running commentary, I'm just asking why you're so angry. Is it because
I
they
also,
breached your trust?
it's important that I don't do anything that prejudices or compromises the integrity of those investigations.
But they could still be ditched as candidates, could they?
We will act as appropriate on informational findings that come to light, including passing anything relevant, of course, to the Gambling Commission and relevant authorities, whilst being mindful, Colin, it's important to understand that have to be mindful of not compromising the integrity of what are serious law enforcement investigations that are happening in parallel.
Integrity is an important word. You said when you became Prime Minister you wanted a government of the highest integrity. You've clearly failed.
So, these are serious allegations. That's why it's right that they're investigated properly and thoroughly by the relevant authorities.
But by your own standards, you've failed.
That's it. Well, that's why we're conducting our own internal inquiries, because I don't have information that the Gambling Commission
But Craig
has.
Williams has admitted doing this. He was your PPS. He had privileged information. He let you down.
Colin, you're saying lots of things.
I'm just telling you what he said. He said it was a huge error of judgment.
There is an independent inquiry being conducted by law enforcement authorities. It's important that that inquiry is allowed to happen confidentially and thoroughly, and it's conducted not by you but by the relevant authorities. We in parallel in the party are conducting our own
disputing
internal...
that it was a huge error of judgment for Craig Williams?
What I'm telling you is we are conducting our own
I know
internal
that,
inquiries.
I'm asking you
and
about
we
Craig
will
Williams, who's your PPS. Do you think he made a huge error of judgment or not?
We're conducting our own internal inquiry as we speak, in parallel, because I don't have...
Because an awful lot of people think you're making a huge error of judgment now. You're showing weak leadership by not suspending these people.
As I said, we have been conducting our own internal inquiries in parallel and will not hesitate to act.
Our political editor Colin Mackay interviewing there. Well, in the last full week of campaigning before the general election, we've continued our road trip around the country's summer hotspots.
Our political reporter Laura Alderman has spent the day at the Falkirk Wheel, where people have been reacting to the emerging betting scandal in the Conservative Party.
Yes, this is a story that's not just confined to the Westminster bubble. It's cut through, with people here telling me they're angry and they feel a growing sense of distrust between politicians and the public. Now, this is the 6th stop on our summer election road trip. We started a few weeks ago in Loch Lomond before making our way north to Drumnadrochit, over to Ballater, St Andrews, Ingliston, and now we're at one of Scotland's top tourist attractions, the Falkirk Wheel, which connects the Forth and Clyde Canal with the Union Canal. But a difficulty for parties is finding that connection with voters, and the clock is ticking. The finish line in this general election is within sight, but it's not been smooth sailing for all the parties. Today, the escalating Tory betting scandal is overshadowing their campaign and has angered people here.
Oh, shocking. I mean, really? You know, so, no.
You're beginning to wonder who you can trust.
Well.
You know, really. You know, are they all telling a lie? Or...
The Conservative Party seems to be the party of putting your foot in it.
I can't believe people are so stupid.
With time marching on, there's only 10 days left to win over any floating voters.
Support workers don't get paid enough. To be honest, no government is going to change the life of the people that we support. It's the staff that work with them that do that.
Tories have a bad run in the past few years, so it's time for a change. And probably Labour.
I'm 96. Carers are not valued enough. The carers are wonderful.
If you look at the health service, you look at child poverty, especially in Scotland, you know, we need to change that.
Use their vote, and have a say, but if you don't have a say, you can't make change.
With just over a week to go, all parties will be getting their ducks in a row and hoping for no more unwanted surprises. Laura Alderman, STV News, Falkirk.
People living next to a major fire at a battery recycling plant in Renfrewshire have told STV News the blaze caused explosions and sent burning debris flying into the air.
Smoke from the site could be seen for miles around, with locals told to close their windows and stay indoors as it raged. The cause of the fire at the Enva plant in Linwood is still unknown. Ollie Dickinson reports.
That's just scary.
Just a few hundred feet from Barbara's home near Paisley, an inferno at a recycling plant last night was sending smoke high into the sky, visible for miles around.
It started popping and banging like a firework explosion, but it was constant, and it just got bigger and bigger. The flames were intense. We could see them through the trees and the fence that was round it on the cycle track. And it was getting higher and higher and higher. And then it was getting too dangerous because there was things flying. There was bits, you could see embers, shiny embers falling.
At its height, 10 fire engines attempted to subdue the blaze. Locals heard the explosions and saw the smoke throughout the night.
It started off with grey smoke coming up, and then 20 minutes later it changed into kind of black smoke. And there was a lot of popping, and it lasted most of the night. It lasted up to about 2 in the morning, but it was really bad. And the smoke was really thick, and as I say, there was quite a lot of people about.
This morning, charred metal and debris littered nearby roads. The site itself continued to smoulder, emitting a thick grey smoke, heavy with a smell that made eyes sting and burned the back of throats.
Sometimes the lithium can get exposed to air, and when it's exposed to air, it'll definitely combust. And when it combusts and there's all this other material, it's in the same like e-waste, once a fire forms, it's going to drag and take all the other electronic item in the gas because the gases are so hot.
Tonight, the site owners, Enva, say an immediate and thorough investigation into the cause of the blaze is underway. And despite its ferocity, the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service say no casualties have been reported. Ollie Dickinson, STV News, Linwood.
2 men are to stand trial charged with murdering a young woman during an alleged car chase in Falkirk. 27-year-old Amy Rose Wilson was killed in the town's New Carron Road last July. 28-year-old Andrew Gregor and 31-year-old Anthony Davidson deny the charges against them and have each lodged special defences of incrimination. 2 men have been charged more than a year after a pedestrian was killed in a crash in Glasgow. 79-year-old David Gow died following the collision on Balmore Road in February last year. 2 men, aged 23 and 24, are now due to appear in court. Hundreds of parents are marching through Glasgow demanding improvements in Scotland's education system. The demonstration has been organised by the Glasgow City Parents Group. They're calling for a reversal of plans to cut 450 teaching posts in the city over the next 3 years. Our political correspondent Ewan Petrie is in George Square.
Well, around 300 parents, teachers, carers and indeed school pupils are gathered here in George Square. They're listening to speeches from a mix of trade unions and politicians right now. They set off from the top of Buchanan Street a short time ago before marching through the city centre. And what they are demanding is that the Scottish Government takes a look at some of the major issues facing the education system right now. Now that includes rising rates of violence, rising absenteeism and of course planned cuts to teacher positions. Glasgow City Council is planning to cut 450 teacher posts over the next 3 years, something the organisers here say will have a huge impact.
What we're hearing from parent councils and schools is that with there being 45 schools in Glasgow, particularly with only the head teacher out of class, that raises safety concerns. It raises concerns around covering staff sickness. There's also concerns about the amount of support that will be given to young people with additional support needs in mainstream schooling.
Well, in response, the Scottish Government says it's investing record levels in the education system and insists it's committed to protecting those teacher numbers. Glasgow City Council, though, says it's been left with little option given the current financial climate. it's having to find savings of more than £100 million over the next 3 years. So it doesn't seem likely that the council will budge on this anytime soon. Now, the teachers in Glasgow have already backed strike action, and protesters here fear that this situation could spread to other local authority areas.
Well, we've tortured ourselves already with the story of Scotland's disappointment at the Euros, but we can't leave it there, can we?
No, we've heard about the Tartan Army, but where did it go wrong on the pitch? Let's go to our sports presenter, Rahman, in Germany.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
A very good evening from Stuttgart. In this stadium behind me, Scotland's Euro 2024 campaign came to a crashing end. The 1-0 defeat to Hungary shattered the hopes of tens of thousands of fans here in this city and millions back home. Steve Clarke, the Scotland head coach, says his players gave it everything and says he's disappointed and sad that Scotland have been eliminated. Down and out. After much hope, belief and even expectation, the Scotland squad left their base in Germany where they received a Bavarian goodbye, which isn't music to any Scots' ears, as they headed home after a failed campaign.
To describe the feeling in the changing room after the game, obviously we came here wanting to win the game and try and do something that a Scotland team's never done before, but yeah, it wasn't to be.
Apologies to the fans, the nation. We wanted to give them something special tonight and we just fell short.
It's 100%. And like I said, it's a one-goal game, we get the penalty, can be a different night.
They had 3 attempts on target, the fewest of all the teams in the tournament, and 20 countries still have a group game to play. 16 total attempts is a joint fewest of all 24 sides. And 7 goals conceded is the most by any team at Euro 2024.
Qualifying for major tournaments is 98 and he's got us to 2 European Championships. Deserves an awful lot of credit for that. What I also think he deserves, Rahman, is a period to go away and think about what he wants to do himself.
A tournament which promised so much ended with a whimper. Well, while there was major disappointment for the national football team here at the Euros, celebrations are continuing at Glasgow Warriors. They've touched down in Scotland after winning the United Rugby Championship final against Bulls in South Africa. Head coach Franco Smith, who was appointed 2 years ago, says he has proven his doubters wrong. A warning, there are flashing pictures in Adam Todd's report.
A hero's welcome after a comeback for the ages. After more than a 16,000-mile round trip, Glasgow Warriors arrived back in home soil with one very welcome new addition, the United Rugby Championship trophy. A stunning second-half display on Saturday night saw Franco Smith's side secure their first title since 2015 against the Bulls in South Africa.
It's all about don't judge a book by its cover. You know, even when I arrived here 2 years ago, a couple of eyebrows were raised. But yeah, again, you know, in sport, you must never, you know, underestimate the hard work everybody puts in.
Trailing 13-0 to the Bulls with less than 30 minutes on the clock, few would have given the Warriors much of a chance. But this try just before the break from Scott Cummings gave them some belief. In the second half, George Turner scored as the Warriors narrowed the gap. Hugh Jones then gave Franco Smith's side the lead, with George Horne once again adding the extras to give the Warriors a 21-16 advantage going into the closing quarter. The question now was, could they hold on? The answer, an emphatic yes.
Glasgow Warriors are the URC champions!
They gave everything and threw everything at us, and for us to be resilient enough to, you know, not be influenced about the conditions, the circumstances, the travel leading up to it, and just go out there and perform the way we did is where the compliment sits.
This was an incredible result that will live long in the memory, not just for the Warriors, but for Scottish sport as a whole. Adam Todd, STV Sport.
Tennis and Andy Murray's mum, Judy, has hit out after her son's medical details were leaked, and she says the former world #1 hasn't been ruled out of Wimbledon yet. Murray underwent back surgery at the weekend. A newspaper reported it was surgery on a spinal cyst. Judy Murray says she's disappointed the information was leaked by someone they could trust. Well, that, folks, is all your sport from Stuttgart. Euro 2024 has come and gone for Scotland. They came to create history, but it's ended in major disappointment. The supporters lit up the tournament. Sadly, the team couldn't match them.
STV Sport, sponsored by the C.R. Smith Summer Sale.
Time to check in with Philip now for the weather forecast.
A dry start to the day will become increasingly splashy. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Hello and a very good evening to you. Well, throughout today we have seen some warm and, dare I say it, hot conditions developing. The hottest weather has been seen across the south of the UK. However, here in Scotland it's turning a bit more mixed over the next couple of days, with our temperatures coming down a degree or two day by day. By Thursday we're just keeping an eye on this low pressure that's moving in from the Atlantic, as that looks set to turn things wetter and windier. Back to just now, we've got a frontal system moving in from the west overnight. That's bringing with it thicker clouds and a band of rain. Ahead of that rain, we'll see 1 or 2 showers developing across parts of Argyll and Bute. But it will be a mild night to come, with temperatures for most towns and cities staying between 11 and 16 degrees Celsius. So looking ahead to Tuesday morning, a warm start to the day. The driest and brightest conditions through the morning will be to the south and east. A wetter and cloudier start in the west. Through the course of the afternoon, under that sunshine, we could see 1 or 2 heavy, possibly thundery showers bubbling up. And it does mean that the temperatures will be down a degree or two compared to today, with highs of 21 or 22 degrees Celsius. So still feeling quite warm under any sunshine. Looking ahead to Wednesday, it should be an okay day. Most of the frontal systems are staying away from the country. The driest and brightest conditions will be in western parts, cloudier further east with highs of 20 or 21. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
Well, the Euros dream is over.
Who cares about football? I'm a rugby fan now. Go the Warriors.
Well done, Warriors.
Good night.